The rancher paid the struggling black widow to clean his barn, but when he knocked at dawn, he found her raising 4 children alone in the hay-strewn darkness. Zeke Thornfield stood in the doorway, his weathered hand still gripping the wooden handle. The morning light cut through the barn's shadows, illuminating a scene that stopped his breath cold. 4 small faces stared back at him from behind scattered blankets and makeshift bedding. 2 black boys, maybe 8 and 10 years old, flanked a woman he recognized as Mercy Beaumont. Between them sat twin girls, white as fresh snow, their blonde hair catching the early sun. The silence stretched like a taut wire. Mercy scrambled to her feet, her worn dress catching on the hay. Her hands moved frantically, gathering the children behind her like a mother bird protecting her nest. The barn smelled of sleep and desperation, of lives lived in the margins where no one was supposed to look. "Mr. Thornfield." Her voice cracked. "I can explain." But Zeke saw everything already. The careful arrangement of their few belongings. The way the older boy's arm wrapped protectively around the smaller ones. The hollow look in Mercy's eyes that spoke of nights without sleep and days without enough food. The twins pressed closer to her skirts. One of them whispered something. "Too quiet to hear. We just need one more day," Mercy said. "I'll finish the cleaning. I promise." Zeke's boots scraped against the barn floor as he stepped inside. The children flinched. Mercy's chin lifted in defiance even as her hands trembled. The barn bore no resemblance to the workspace he'd left her to clean 3 days ago. Blankets hung from the rafters, creating small rooms within the larger space. A circle of stones marked where they'd built a careful fire. Tin cups and plates sat stacked beside a bucket of water drawn from his well. "How long?" he asked. 3 days. The words came out sharp, defensive. "We haven't stolen anything. We haven't broken anything." The older boy stepped forward, his young face set with determination beyond his years. "It's not her fault, mister. We got nowhere else." Zeke studied the child's face. 10 years old, maybe 11. Old enough to know hunger, old enough to know fear. The boy's hands were clean, but his clothes bore the telltale stains of hard living. "What's your name, son?" "Samuel." The boy's voice didn't waver. "This is my brother Isaiah, and these are Lily and Rose." The twins peeked out from behind Mercy's skirts, identical faces, maybe 6 years old. Their presence here made no sense. White children didn't live with black families. Not in this territory, not anywhere he knew. Mercy's breathing quickened. "They're mine now. All of them." "The twins?" "Their mama died birthing them. She was my friend, my best friend." Mercy's voice dropped to a whisper. "She asked me to take them, made me promise." The weight of that promise hung in the air like dust motes in the morning light. Zeke understood promises. He understood the kind of loyalty that defied sense and safety both. "And your husband?" "Mining accident, 6 months ago." The words came out flat, rehearsed. "Cave-in at the Silver Creek mine." Zeke nodded. He'd heard about Silver Creek, heard about the men who went down and never came back up. Heard about the widows left behind with nothing but debts and sorrow. Outside, the wind picked up. It whistled through the barn's weathered boards, carrying the scent of coming snow. October in Colorado territory meant winter wasn't far behind. "You can't stay here," he said. Mercy's face crumpled. "I know. I just thought maybe we could make it through the cold season. Find something come spring. The authorities find you. Here, they'll separate those children faster than you can blink." "I know." Her voice barely carried above the wind. "White children living with a black woman. They'll call it improper. Dangerous." Mercy's hands found the twins' heads, fingers threading through their pale hair. "I don't care what they call it. I made a promise." The older boy, Samuel, stepped closer to his mother. "We stick together, always." Isaiah nodded solemnly. The twins remained silent, their blue eyes wide with the particular alertness of children who'd learned to read danger in adult faces. Zeke walked to the barn's far end, where his tools hung on wooden pegs. Everything was clean, organized, cared for. Mercy had done the work he'd hired her for, even while turning his barn into a home for 4 children. The first snowflakes began to fall outside. Just a few, drifting past the open door like warnings. "Storm's coming," he said. Mercy gathered the children closer. "We'll be gone before it hits. I promise." But Zeke was already moving toward the door, already making calculations about the weather, about the cabin that sat empty behind his house, about the way Samuel stood like a soldier, protecting his family, and the way Mercy's eyes held the same fierce determination he'd seen in his own mirror during the hardest years of his life. "Nobody's going anywhere in this weather," he said. The wind howled agreement, and the snow began to fall in earnest. The snow fell harder now, thick flakes that blurred the world. Beyond the barn door, Zeke watched the storm gather strength while Mercy bundled the children deeper into their makeshift bedding. The cold crept through the wooden walls, and he knew what winter meant in this territory: death for those caught unprepared. He turned from the door, his boots heavy against the barn floor. The children's eyes followed his movement. Mercy's hands stilled on the blankets. "I've been watching you," he said. The words hung in the air. Mercy's face went pale. "Watching you struggle for weeks now. Watching you take every job in town for half what it's worth. Watching you get thinner while those children stayed fed." Mercy's hands clenched into fists. "You've been spying on us. I offered you this job because I knew you needed help." The trail hit her features. Her mouth opened, then closed. The children sensed the shift in her mood and pressed closer together. "You felt sorry for me. I felt responsible." "For what?" Her voice turned sharp. "For my dead husband? For my circumstances? For the fact that I can't provide for my family?" Zeke's jaw tightened. "For standing by while a decent woman and 4 children went hungry." Mercy gathered the twins under her arms. Samuel and Isaiah flanked her, their young faces set with the same defiance she wore. "We don't need your pity." "Good, because I don't have any to give." The wind rattled the barn doors. Snow began to drift through the gaps in the walls, dusting the hay with white powder. The temperature dropped with each gust. Mercy began folding their few belongings. Her movements were quick, efficient. The movements of someone who'd learned to pack a life in minutes. "Come on, babies. We're leaving." Samuel looked toward the door, then back at his mother. "Mama, the storm. We'll find shelter somewhere else." But there was nowhere else. They all knew it. The nearest town was 15 miles through open country. The nearest neighbor was 10 miles south. In this weather, they wouldn't make it 2 miles. Zeke watched her gather their possessions. A few changes of clothes. A small wooden horse, hand-carved. A book with pages soft from reading. The accumulation of 4 lives reduced to what could fit in a single flour sack. "I lost my family," he said quietly. Mercy's hands stilled on the pack. "Wife and daughter. Fever took them 3 winters ago." The barn fell silent except for the wind and snow. The children watched him with wide eyes. "Emma was carrying our 2nd child when she got sick. Lost them both in the same week." Mercy's fingers traced the edge of the wooden horse. "I'm sorry. Been living alone ever since. House too big, too quiet." He walked to the tool wall, ran his hand along the clean handles. "You did good work here. Better than I've seen in years." "It's just cleaning." "No, it's caring. There's a difference." The wind gusted stronger, sending snow spiraling through the barn. One of the twins shivered and burrowed deeper into Mercy's side. "I have a foreman's cabin," Zeke said. "Been empty since my last hand moved on. Has a good stove, solid walls." Mercy looked up sharply. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying I need help managing my house, cooking, cleaning, and those boys are old enough to help with chores. You're offering us work. I'm offering you a place to stay through the winter, in exchange for help around the ranch." Mercy's eyes narrowed. "And what happens when spring comes? When people start asking questions about why you've got a black woman and 4 children living on your property?" Zeke met her gaze. "We'll face that when it comes." The twins had fallen quiet, their small bodies pressed against Mercy's warmth. Isaiah's eyes were heavy with sleep. Samuel remained alert, watching the adults with the wariness of a child who'd learned that safety was temporary. "Why?" Mercy asked. "Why risk it?" Zeke looked out at the storm. The snow was coming down in sheets now, erasing the familiar landscape, because it's the right thing to do. The right thing gets people killed in this territory. The wrong thing kills them faster. Mercy was quiet for a long moment. Her fingers worked through Rose's hair, smoothing the tangles. The child's breathing had evened into sleep. "I won't be your charity case. You'll be my employee. There's a difference. And if the authorities come asking questions, then we'll have answers ready." The wind howled through the rafters. Snow began to pile against the barn walls, sealing them in with the storm's cold breath. "The cabin's got 2 rooms," Zeke said. "Wood stove, good chimney. I'll bring supplies. Over before the storm gets worse." Samuel stepped forward. "What about school? There's a schoolhouse in town. Miss Harper teaches there. She's fair to all the children. Even us?" The question carried weight beyond the boy's years. Zeke nodded. "Even you." Mercy stood slowly, the twins still clinging to her skirts. "This is temporary, just until spring." Just until spring. But they both knew winter in Colorado territory was long and unforgiving. Spring was months away, and months had a way of changing everything. The wind died for a moment, leaving only the soft whisper of falling snow. In that silence, Zeke heard something he hadn't heard in his barn for years, the sound of people breathing, of a family sheltering together against the storm. "We'll need to move quickly," he said, "before the snow gets too deep." Mercy nodded. She began gathering the children's belongings again, but this time her movements were different. Not the frantic packing of flight, but the careful preparation of someone moving towards something instead of away. Outside, the storm raged on. But inside the barn, something had shifted. Something as fragile as trust and as necessary as breath. The cabin waded through the snow, empty and cold. But it wouldn't stay that way much longer. 3 weeks passed in the foreman's cabin. The November wind carried the scent of snow and wood smoke and something else. Something that smelled of home. Mercy had transformed the small space into a refuge. Curtains sewn from feed sacks framed the windows. The twins' drawings covered one wall, crayon flowers blooming in impossible colors. Samuel's whittling projects lined the mantel, small animals carved from scraps of pine. Isaiah's collection of smooth stones filled a mason jar, each one polished to gleaming. The rhythm of their days had settled into something that felt almost normal. Mercy cooked breakfast before dawn, her movements efficient in the small kitchen. The children did their chores without complaint. Samuel helped Zeke with the cattle. Isaiah gathered eggs from the henhouse. The twins swept the main house floors with brooms cut down to their size, but normal was a fragile thing in this territory. Normal could shatter with a single wrong word in the wrong ear. Zeke watched Mercy hang laundry in the cold morning air. Her hands moved quickly, pinning small dresses and work shirts to the line. The wind whipped her skirts, and she tucked a strand of hair behind her ear with unconscious grace. "Mama," Rose tugged at Mercy's coat. "Mama, look." The word hit Zeke square in the chest. The twins had been saying it for a week now, and each time it landed with the same quiet force. Mercy knelt beside the child, her dark hands gentle on Rose's. "Pale cheek, what is it, baby?" I made this for you." Rose held up a chain of paper links, each one colored with careful precision. Red and blue and yellow, bright against the gray morning. "It's beautiful." Mercy's voice carried that particular softness mothers save for their children. "Help me hang it in the kitchen window." They walked toward the cabin together, Rose chattering about her creation. Lily followed, her small hand tucked into Mercy's. "Free one." The picture they made struck Zeke as both perfectly natural and impossibly dangerous. A black woman mothering white children. In this territory, that was a crime waiting to be discovered. The thought followed him through the morning. Chores. Samuel worked beside him, repairing fence posts with the focused attention of a boy trying to prove himself. The child had capable hands and a quick mind. He absorbed instruction without complaint. "You're good at this," Zeke said. Samuel's chest swelled with pride. "My daddy taught me some, before he died." "He taught you well." They worked in comfortable silence, the kind of quiet that settled between people who understood each other without need for words. The fence post stood straight and strong, ready for whatever winter would bring. But as they walked back toward the cabin, Zeke noticed the rider on the ridge. A woman in a dark coat, sitting her horse with rigid posture. Watching. Constance Whitmore, the town's self-appointed guardian of moral order. She sat there for long minutes, her gaze fixed on the cabin where smoke curled from the chimney, where children's laughter drifted on the wind, where Mercy hung another load of laundry, unaware of the scrutiny. Then she turned her horse toward town, and Zeke knew their borrowed peace was about to end. That evening, he found Mercy in the main house kitchen, kneading bread dough with methodical precision. The twins sat at the table, practicing their letters. On slate boards, Samuel read aloud from a primer while Isaiah listened with rapt attention. "We need to talk," Zeke said quietly. Mercy's hands stilled on the dough. She looked at the children, then back at him. Outside. They walked to the porch where the cold air carried the scent of pine and possibility. Stars wheeled overhead, brilliant in the clear sky. "Someone's asking questions," Zeke said. Mercy's shoulders tensed. "Who?" "Constance Whitmore. She was watching the cabin today." "What kind of questions?" "The kind that get people separated from their children." Mercy gripped the porch railing. Her knuckles showed white against her dark skin. "How long do we have?" "Hard to say. Could be days, could be weeks, or hours." "Or hours." They stood in silence, listening to the night sounds. An owl called from the barn. Cattle shifted in the near pasture. Inside the house, Samuel's voice continued reading, steady and sure. "The twins call you Mama now," Zeke said. "I know. That's going to make things complicated." "Everything about this is complicated." Mercy turned to face him. Her eyes held the same fierce determination he'd seen in the barn 3 weeks ago. "They're mine now, all of them. I don't care what the law says. The law doesn't care what you think either." "Then what do you suggest?" Zeke looked through the kitchen window where the children bent over their lessons. A family in everything but name. A family that couldn't exist in the eyes of the territory. "We make it legal," he said. "How?" "Marriage, adoption, papers that say those children belong to us." The word hung between them. "U.S., not her, not him. Us. You don't know what you're saying." "I know exactly what I'm saying." "You'd risk everything for children that aren't yours?" "They're yours. That makes them mine." Mercy was quiet for a long moment. Inside, the twins had finished their lessons and were helping Samuel clear the table. Their movements were careful, practiced. The movements of children who'd learned to take care of themselves and each other. "People will talk," she said finally. "Let them talk. They'll do more than talk. They'll make life impossible. Life's already impossible. At least this way, we'll face it together." The wind picked up, rattling the bare branches of the cottonwood tree. Winter was coming, and with it, the kind of cold that killed the unprepared. I need to think about it, Mercy said. Don't think too long. Constance Whitmore doesn't waste time when she sets her mind to something. They went back inside, where the children had settled around the fireplace. Isaiah was showing the twins how to make shadow puppets on the wall. Samuel whittled another small horse, his young face serious in the firelight. Why do we have to hide? Samuel asked suddenly. The question cut through the comfortable domesticity. Mercy and Zeke exchanged glances. What do you mean? Mercy asked. Why can't we just be a family? Why do we have to pretend we're just working here? Rose looked up from her shadow puppet. Aren't we a family? The innocent question carried the weight of everything they'd built in 3 weeks. Everything they stood to lose. We are, Mercy said softly. We are a family. Then why do we have to hide? Zeke knelt beside Samuel's chair. Because sometimes the world isn't ready for the truth. When will it be ready? Maybe never. Maybe we have to make it ready. Outside, the wind carried the scent of snow. The first real storm of winter was coming, and with it, decisions that couldn't be undone. In the morning, Dr. Edmund Cray would ride up to the house, his weathered face troubled and his hands shaking with more than just age. He would carry news that would change everything. But tonight, they were still a family sheltering together. Against the coming storm, Dr. Edmund Cray arrived at dawn, his horse lathered with sweat despite the cold. His hands shook as he dismounted, and not from the December wind that cut across the ranch yard. Zeke met him at the gate. The old doctor's face was gray, his usual composure cracked. He'd been making these visits for weeks now, claiming to check on Zeke's health. But his nervous glances toward the cabin told a different story. We need to talk, Dr. Cray said. They walked toward the barn, away from the cabin where smoke curled from the chimney, away from the children's voices drifting on the morning air. Judge Hartwell's coming, Dr. Cray said without preamble. Constance Whitmore filed a formal complaint. He'll be here within the week. Zeke's jaw tightened. What kind of complaint? Irregular living arrangements. Improper care of white children. Moral concerns. The words hung in the cold air like accusations. Through the cabin window, Zeke could see Mercy helping the twins with their breakfast. The picture of domestic tranquility that would destroy them all. There's something else, Dr. Cray said, his voice cracked. Something I should have told you long ago. The old man's hands trembled as he reached into his coat pocket. He pulled out a folded paper, yellowed with age and worn soft at the creases. This belonged to Catherine Morrison, the twins' mother. Zeke took the paper, unfolded it carefully. The handwriting was shaky, the ink faded. But the words were clear. Enough, a will, written in a woman's dying hand, naming Mercy Beaumont as guardian of her twin daughters. She wrote it. The night they were born, Dr. Cray said, made me witness it, made me promise to see it honored. Why didn't you? Because I was a coward. The words came out raw, scraped from some deep place. I knew what would happen to those babies if a black woman tried to claim them. Knew what would happen to Mercy. Zeke stared at the paper. Legal proof of what everyone already knew in their hearts. Mercy was the twins' rightful guardian. I've been carrying this guilt for 6 months, Dr. Cray continued, watching Mercy struggle. Watching her try to care for those children with nothing. Knowing I had the power to help and being too afraid to use it. What changed? Judge Hartwell's coming anyway. If he takes those children, at least let him take them knowing the truth. The cabin door opened. Mercy stepped onto the porch, her coat wrapped tight against the wind. She looked toward the barn, her expression wary. Does she? No, Zeke asked. Not yet. She needs to see this. They walked toward the cabin together, the paper heavy in Zeke's hand. Mercy met them at the door, her eyes moving between their faces. What's wrong? Zeke handed her the will. Watched her face change as she read the familiar handwriting. watched her sink into a chair as the full weight of it hit her. Catherine wrote this? The night the twins were born, Dr. Cray said. She knew she was dying, knew what she wanted for her daughters. You've had this for 6 months? Yes. Well, I've been scraping by. Well, I've been afraid every day that someone would take them from me. Dr. Cray's shoulders sagged. I'm sorry. Mercy looked at the paper again, her fingers tracing the words. Will this help? It's legal proof, Zeke said. But it might not matter. What do you mean? Judge Hartwell doesn't care about legal documents when it comes to matters of race. He'll find a way around it. The twins appeared in the doorway, their blonde hair catching the morning light. Rose carried her chain of paper links. Lily held the wooden horse Samuel had carved for her. Mama, Rose said. Can we go play outside? Mercy's hand tightened on the will. Stay close to the house. The children ran toward the yard, their laughter bright against the gray morning. Mercy watched them through the window, her face etched with fierce protectiveness. There's more, Dr. Cray said quietly. Judge Hartwell's not just coming for the twins. He's investigating the whole arrangement. He thinks you're living in sin. We're not living in sin, Mercy said. We're barely living at all. He doesn't see it that way. He sees a black woman cohabitating with a white man. Sees white children being raised by someone he considers unfit. Zeke moved to the window. Watched Samuel teaching Isaiah how to rope fence posts. The boys worked with serious concentration, their breath visible in the cold air. How long do we have? He asked. 3 days. Maybe 4, then we do it now. Mercy looked up sharply. Do what? Get married. Make this legal. Adopt all 4 children under my name. You don't understand what you're asking. I understand perfectly. You'll lose everything, your reputation, your standing in the community, your business. I'll lose more if I do nothing. Dr. Cray cleared his throat. There's a preacher in Silver Creek, Methodist. He's performed mixed marriages before. Mixed marriages are illegal in this territory, Mercy said. Not if nobody reports them. Not if the right people look the other way. Mercy stood, walked to the window where the children played. Her reflection ghosted against the glass, overlaying their innocent games with her troubled face. They'll never accept it, she said. The town will turn against us. Some will. Others might surprise you. And if they don't, then we'll face it together. The wind rattled the cabin walls. Outside, the children's voices rose in excitement as they built a snowman from the morning's dusting. 4 children who had no idea their world was about to change forever. I need to think, Mercy said. There's no time to think. Hartwell could arrive early. Could bring the territorial authorities with him. Then what are you suggesting? We leave for Silver Creek tonight. Get married tomorrow. Come back with papers that make this family legal. Mercy turned from the window. And if he doesn't accept our marriage, then at least we'll have tried. The cabin fell silent except for the wind and the distant sound of children's laughter. Dr. Cray shifted uncomfortably, his guilt weighing heavy in the small space. I'll go with you, he said suddenly. I'll testify about the will, about Catherine's wishes. Why? Because I've been a coward long enough. Mercy looked at the will again, her friend's final words written in a shaking hand. A mother's love. Transcending death, reaching across months to protect her children. If we do this, she said quietly, there's no going back. There's no going back anyway, Zeke replied. Hartwell's coming whether we're married or not. At least this way we face him as a family. The word hung between them, heavy with possibility and danger. Family. The thing they'd become without planning. The thing they'd die to. Protect. Outside, the children called for them to come see their snowman. Their voices bright with joy, untouched by the storm gathering on the horizon. Tonight, Mercy said finally. We leave tonight. The decision settled over them like snow. covering the familiar landscape of their lives with something new and uncertain. Judge Hartwell arrived before dawn, his black carriage cutting through the morning mist. Sheriff Coleman rode beside him, his hand resting on his gun belt. Behind them came two more men, territorial officials with papers folded in their coat pockets. Zeke met them at the gate, his marriage certificate tucked inside his vest. The ink was barely dry, the preacher's signature still fresh from their midnight ceremony in Silver Creek. Mercy stood on the porch, her wedding ring catching the pale light. "Mr. Thornfield," Judge Hartwell said, his voice carrying the weight of authority, "we need to discuss your living arrangements. My wife and I are happy to answer any questions." The word wife hit the air like a stone in still water. Judge Hartwell's eyes narrowed. Sheriff Coleman's hand tightened on his gun. "Your wife? Mercy Thornfield. We were married yesterday in Silver Creek. Show me the papers." Zeke handed over the certificate. Judge Hartwell examined it with the careful attention of a man looking for flaws. His face darkened as he read. "This is irregular. It's legal." "Legal doesn't mean proper." The children appeared in the cabin doorway. Samuel's arm wrapped around Isaiah's shoulders. The twins pressed close to their brothers, their blue eyes wide with fear. "Where are the white children?" Judge Hartwell demanded. "Those are my daughters," Mercy said quietly. "Lily and Rose." "Your daughters?" Dr. Cray stepped forward from where he'd been waiting by the barn. His hands shook as he pulled out the will, but his voice held steady. "I have legal documentation." Judge Hartwell snatched the paper, read it with growing fury. "This is worthless. It's a legally witnessed will, written by a dying woman, under duress. Not legally binding. It's binding enough to show her wishes. Her wishes were clearly influenced by fever and childbirth. No rational woman would leave white children to be raised by a black woman." The words hung in the cold air like accusations. Mercy's hands clenched into fists at her sides. "I raised those children from birth," she said. "I fed them, clothed them, loved them. They're mine. They're not yours. They never were." Judge Hartwell gestured to the territorial officials. "Take the white children. Place them with a proper family." "No." Samuel stepped forward, his young face set with determination. "We stay together. Boy, you don't have a choice in this matter. They're our sisters." "They're not your sisters. They're white children who need proper care." The officials moved toward the porch. Mercy stepped in front of the twins, her body a shield between them and the approaching men. "Don't touch them." "Ma'am, step aside." "I said don't touch them." Zeke moved to stand beside his wife. "Those children are legally mine now. Adopted under territorial law. Show me the papers." The adoption certificates were fresh from the territorial office, signed and sealed. Judge Hartwell examined them with increasing rage. "These are fraudulent. They're legal. You can't adopt white children under these circumstances." "Under what circumstances?" "Being married to their legal guardian?" The crowd had begun to gather. Word spread fast in a small territory, and curious neighbors rode up to witness the confrontation. Constance Whitmore sat her horse at the edge of the yard, her face triumphant, but others had come too. Miss Harper, the schoolteacher, stood near the fence. The Methodist preacher from town had ridden out. 3 ranch families clustered together, their faces serious. "This is an abomination," Judge Hartwell declared, his voice carrying across the yard. "A mockery of proper Christian family values. What's improper about a family taking care of each other?" Miss Harper stepped forward. "I've taught all 4 of those children. They're well cared for, well loved. They're being raised in an inappropriate environment. They're being raised by people who love them." The crowd murmured agreement. Judge Hartwell's face reddened. "The territorial government has authority in these matters. These children will be removed immediately." "Over my dead body," Zeke said. Quietly, the silence stretched taut. Sheriff Coleman's hand moved to his gun. The territorial officials flanked the porch steps. Then Dr. Cray spoke, his voice carrying across the yard. I delivered those twins. I watched their mother die. I heard her final words. He paused, letting the weight of his testimony settle. Catherine Morrison was my patient for 8 months. She spoke of Mercy constantly, trusted her completely. She chose Mercy as guardian with full knowledge and clear mind. The woman was dying. The woman was determined to see her children cared for by someone who loved them. Miss Harper stepped closer. I've seen those children in school. They're thriving. They're happy. They call Mercy their mother because that's what she is. She's not their mother. She's not even their legal guardian. She is now, Zeke said, tapping the adoption papers. Those children are legally mine. Mercy is legally my wife. We're a family under territorial law. Law doesn't make this right. Right doesn't make this wrong. The crowd pressed closer. Ranch hands and farmers, storekeepers, and their wives. People who'd watched this family struggle and survive together. Let them be, called out Tom Morrison, a cattle rancher from the next valley. They're not hurting anyone. They're setting a dangerous precedent, Judge Hartwell snapped. They're raising children with love and dignity, Miss Harper replied. That's not dangerous. That's Christian. The wind picked up, scattering dust across the yard. The children remained huddled on the porch, their faces pale but determined. I'm ordering the removal of these children, Judge Hartwell declared. This arrangement is improper and will not be tolerated. Then you'll have to remove them over the objections of half this territory, said a new voice. Everyone turned. A man in a fine coat rode up on a bay horse, his bearing official. He dismounted with practiced ease. James Crawford, he said, extending his hand to Judge Hartwell. Territorial Governor's Office. Judge Hartwell's face went pale. What brings you here? Reports of an irregular situation. I've come to investigate. Crawford looked around the yard, taking in the crowd, the family on the porch, the tension thick as smoke. I've reviewed the documentation, he said, pulling papers from his coat. Marriage certificate, adoption papers, and a will naming Mrs. Thornfield as guardian. Everything appears to be in order. The circumstances are highly irregular. The circumstances are legal. Legal doesn't mean proper. Proper doesn't mean legal either. Crawford walked to the porch, looked at the children clustered together. Are you being well cared for? Samuel nodded. Yes, sir. Are you happy here? Yes, sir. Do you want to stay with your family? Yes, sir. Crawford turned back to Judge Hartwell. The territorial government recognizes this family as legally constituted. The children will remain in their current placement. The crowd exhaled collectively. Judge Hartwell's face flushed red. This is a mistake. Maybe, but it's a legal mistake. Judge Hartwell gathered his officials, his defeat written in the rigid set of his shoulders. This isn't over. Yes, Crawford said quietly. It is. The carriages rolled away, leaving dust and silence in their wake. The crowd began to disperse, some offering congratulations, others leaving with troubled faces. Mercy sank into a chair. On the porch, her legs suddenly weak. The twins climbed into her lap, their small bodies warm against her chest. Are we really safe now? Rose asked. Yes, baby, we're safe. But Zeke knew better. Safety was a relative thing in this territory. They'd won this battle, but the war would continue in whispered conversations and closed doors. Still, for now, they were a family, legal and recognized and whole. The wind carried the scent of snow, and winter pressed close around them. The weeks following Judge Hartwell's departure passed in careful quiet. December settled over the ranch with the weight of held breath. The family moved through their days with the cautious rhythm of people who had learned not to trust good fortune too quickly. But all eyes emerged from unexpected places. Miss Harper arrived on a Tuesday morning, her wagon loaded with books and supplies. She'd been dismissed from her teaching position for supporting the family publicly, but her dismissal had sparked something in the community. "I thought that children might benefit from continued education," she said, climbing down from her wagon. "I have time now." Behind her came the Methodist preacher and his wife, carrying baskets of food. Then Tom Morrison with his 3 sons, offering to help with the winter chores. Dr. Cray brought medicine for the children's coughs and stayed to help Samuel practice his reading. The ranch became a gathering place for those who believed love mattered more than color. Not everyone in the territory agreed, but enough did to make life possible. Zeke watched his wife teach the twins to braid each other's hair. 6 months ago, Mercy had been a stranger desperate enough to sleep in his barn. Now she moved through his house with the quiet confidence of someone who belonged. She caught him watching and smiled. The expression transformed her face, erasing the worry lines that had marked her features since her husband's death. "What are you thinking about?" she asked. "How different everything is. Different good or different bad? Different necessary." The twins ran outside to play in the snow, their laughter bright against the winter air. Samuel and Isaiah followed, carrying sleds they'd built from barn wood and leather straps. "They're happy," Mercy said, watching them through the window. "They're home." The word carried weight, they both understood. Home wasn't a place you were born. It was a place you chose to build with the people who mattered most. That evening, as they gathered around the fireplace, Zeke made an announcement that had been growing in his mind for weeks. "We're going to expand the ranch," he said. "Build more cabins. Create a place where families can come when they need help." "What kind of families?" Samuel asked, looking up from his whittling. "Any kind. Families that don't fit what other people think they should be." Mercy's hands stilled on her mending. "That's a dangerous thing to do." "Most worthwhile things are. It'll bring trouble." "We've already got trouble. Might as well make it count for something." The fire crackled, sending shadows dancing across the walls. The twins had fallen asleep curled together in the big chair, their blonde heads pillowed on the same cushion. "What are you really saying?" Mercy asked. "I'm saying we turn this place into a sanctuary. A place where love matters more than law. Where families can be families, no matter what they look like. And when the authorities come, we'll be ready." "With what?" "With the truth. With legal papers. With a community that believes in what we're doing." Dr. Cray arrived the next morning with news that would test their resolve. He brought word that 3 more families needed help. A Mexican woman with 2 children whose husband had been killed in a mining accident. A white man trying to raise his deceased wife's mixed-race son. A former slave from Texas traveling with an elderly white woman who'd helped her escape. "They're all heading north," Dr. Cray explained. "Looking for somewhere they can exist without fear." "Send them here," Zeke said without hesitation. "All of them?" "All of them." By spring, the ranch had transformed. 5 new cabins dotted the valley, each one housing a family that had found refuge from a world that didn't understand them. The children attended school together in the barn, taught by Miss Harper and anyone else with knowledge to share. The vegetable garden expanded to feed 30 people. The cattle herd grew to support them all. The ranch became a small community built on the radical idea that love could transcend the boundaries society insisted on drawing. Not everyone approved. Judge Hartwell continued to file complaints with the territorial government. Constance Whitmore organized boycotts of businesses that supported the ranch. Some neighbors stopped speaking to them entirely, but others joined the cause. The Methodist Church split over the issue, with half the congregation supporting the ranch families. The new school teacher, hired to replace Miss Harper, quietly sent supplies and offered to teach any child who needed extra help. 6 months after Judge Hartwell's failed attempt to break up their family, Mercy stood in the same barn where Zeke had first found her. But now the space rang with children's voices and the sound of families building new lives together. Do you ever regret it? She asked Zeke as they watched Samuel teach a group of younger children to rope fence posts. Which part? Any of it, all of it. Zeke looked around the barn, at the faces of people who'd found hope in an unlikely place. At his wife, who'd become the heart of something bigger than either of them had imagined. At the 4 children who'd started it all, now part of an extended family that spanned colors and cultures and backgrounds. Never, he said. The twins ran past, chasing a group of other children in some elaborate game. Rose had grown taller over the winter, her face losing its baby roundness. Lily had learned to read and spent hours with books spread across the kitchen table. Samuel and Isaiah had become leaders among the ranch children, teaching newcomers the rhythms of their unusual community. They'd found their place in a world that had tried to deny them one. What happens when they grow up? Mercy asked. When they want to leave here and make their own way? Then they take this with them. They take the knowledge that families can be built from love instead of law. They take the strength that comes from being accepted for who they are. And if the world doesn't accept them, then they change the world, one family at a time. The barn door opened and Rose ran in, her cheeks flushed with cold and excitement. Mama, Papa, come see what we built. They followed her outside, where the children had constructed an elaborate snow fort. Every child on the ranch had contributed to its creation, their different backgrounds and experiences combining to create something none of them could have built alone. Mercy slipped her hand into Zeke's as they watched the children play. The gesture was simple, natural. The touch of 2 people who'd found each other in the most unlikely circumstances and built something beautiful from the fragments of their separate lives. The ranch stretched around them, a sanctuary built on love and defended by courage. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't easy, but it was home. And that was enough. And that is all to the story, for now. Please let me know where you are tuning in from. Perhaps we will create a story there. Consider liking this video and subscribing to our channel. And if you enjoy our content, click this video on your screen. I promise you, it's worth watching. See you tomorrow.